when I have sparred people who do a lot of boxing, you know, and they have a lot of head movement, and their head movement's really good, but I get their timing. I lift up my leg and be like, pow, you know, if they're ducking underneath my punches, I lift up my leg and be like, hey, I could have just ended the fight right there. I could have kneed you in the face and you would have been knocked out. Because it wasn't a boxing fight. It was a kickboxing fight. It's just they did a lot of boxing. They're doing kickboxing. You know, I don't know why they're doing kickboxing. Maybe they want to start kickboxing, but they're doing their fancy schmancy boxing head movement, which, you know, is effective in boxing. But you can't duck. You can dodge. You can use slipping and head movement in kickboxing and MMA. You just can't do the rollover that you can do in just boxing, because you just can't duck, because you're gonna get kneed in the head. There are people who argue it's like, oh, well, you probably can, because the amount of people who can knee you in the head, you know, while you're doing your head movement is pretty low. I don't think that's true, because I've managed to time several people and would have kneed them in the head had I not held back. And I'm not some amazing fighter. I am not even an average fighter. I've not been practicing enough to be able to call myself a fighter by any stretch of the imagination. At the moment, at my current skill level, my current practice level, I am nothing more than a very enthusiastic martial artist, which is not the same as a fighter. A fighter is someone who practices fighting. I haven't practiced fighting in a very, very long time. So I cannot, in good conscience, call myself a fighter. So, yeah. So the fact that I have managed to, like, be able to knee boxers in the head, like, I've essentially done it. Like, I haven't, again, like I said, I don't actually knee them in the head, but I've essentially proven that I would have been able to knee my opponent in the head so many times, to the point where it's like, actually, I think a lot of fighters who study their opponent's head movement would be able to do it. And so you really just, you cannot do the rollover. You cannot, or the roll under, I don't know. You just can't slip and roll. You can slip, you can dodge, you just can't duck. And to do a proper roll, like a proper technical roll, you need to duck under the punches. And a lot of people are like, or a lot of people who know what they're talking about will be like, wait, I thought you said when you were in punching range, you became like a pocket fighter. And isn't the slip, dodge, and roll super important for a pocket fighter? And you would be correct. I can't do it in kickboxing. So I need to get really good at slipping, and I need to get really good at just landing body shots with intention, so that when they are afraid of them, so I can start feinting, so that I can get into better position, or being able to, or opening them up for a clinch. Is he just blocking everything? He's just parrying everything. What the fuck? Motherfucker. Whatever you say, buddy. Because I'm in it for the long run. Is this just going through all of the, like, zones? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Why are they calling me? Sorry, that was the spouse, and when the spouse calls, I answer, particularly because of their job, they don't typically call. So everything's fine though. Everything's fine. Just some personal things, and they wanted to talk to me, so. And since I don't have a job, it's not like I will only pick up in emergencies. But where was I? Where was I? What was I talking about? Right, you know, being a fighter versus a martial artist. Like, you can be a martial artist without being a fighter. Straight up. There are people who only want to do forms. There are people who only want to, who are just doing it for exercise. You're still a martial artist. You're doing martial arts. I don't know why you're doing martial arts if you're also not going to practice combat, but, you know, that's just a personal thing. But for me, martial arts is combat, and so for me, there's no I have no reason to practice martial arts for the sake of just exercise or just to do forms or just for fun. I do martial arts because I want to be good at fighting. And it just turns out that the martial art that I like the most, being Taekwondo, isn't the, you know, the best for fighting. It used to be better, but with the modern point systems and the modern philosophy of Taekwondo, it lost a lot of its combative integrity. It used to have it. It used to be significantly better for combat than it currently is. And when I say combat, I'm not talking in general, like self-defense and sport combat. It used to be a lot better. Before the Olympics, especially before they started using electronic armor with sensors, if you wanted to get score in Taekwondo matches, your hits had to do something. Like, I think they called it trembling shock. You had to either clearly do an attack that would have either damaged or moved your opponent. And the way that they judged that would be looking at the armor. If the armor or your opponent got displaced, which means it moved because of your attack, that's when you get the point. If you just kind of slapped your opponent with your leg or arm, which you can do now, and get a point because of these electronic armor sets that sense contact, it wouldn't count as a point because you needed to make it obvious, because Taekwondo fighters are fast as shit. So, like, if you want to get a point, it needs to do obvious and clear damage to your opponent, because otherwise the judges aren't going to see it. So you need to make it obvious, and the way to make it obvious is to hit with intention and to do damage, because if you don't, you're not going to get the point. But nowadays they had the electronic armor that will sense if you hit your opponent, so you know it's more effective to just land strikes, as many of them and as quickly as possible. There's no real point in making sure that you're actually doing something. And why would you? The rule set allows it, and that's how you win. And you do sports to win at them, especially when you get to the Olympics. So I get why Taekwondo has evolved the way that it has. Taekwondo has always had issues with punches just because of how much they emphasize kicks. So, you know, it's, in order to do with Taekwondo what I want to do with it, I need to not only integrate martial arts like boxing and Muay Thai, I need to find the more traditional techniques to strike with power. because the current techniques that are being taught in a lot of schools are emphasizing speed so much that they're taking shortcuts. They're not making sure their hip is turned over on strikes. They're not making sure that their body weight is being moved into the strike, because it takes longer to do that. It just does. The technique will take longer to land if you do it properly for power. So they're not practicing it that way. And you don't even need to kick people that hard to knock them out. You don't need a full power kick to knock somebody out. But you do need to be moving your weight into the kick. And the way that kicks are taught in Taekwondo nowadays, they just don't do that. They, you know, they're staying in place. They're landing their tag. And as long as that's all they need to do in order to get a point. So why would they take the time to practice, you know, making sure your hip is turned over, making sure your body weight is flowing in the direction of the kick so that you're getting the maximum amount of power for the least amount of effort, when, you know, you could just get good at lifting your leg up and tagging your opponent a bunch over and over again. Why would you take the time to practice the technique for developing power when speed is speed and volume are so much more important in modern Taekwondo? Because in more classic Taekwondo, it was so difficult to get points that, like, there were entire fighters whose entire strategy was, fuck the points, I'm going to knock out my opponent, because that would mean you would win. That would guarantee victory even if you don't have as many points. So there were entire styles of Taekwondo where, like, you would throw a ton of feints in the hopes of opening up your opponent for this big, massive spinning hook kick that you're gonna throw and knock out your opponent. And what's really fun about that era is that you ended up with way more spinning kicks, way more jumping kicks, way more fancy, flashy kicks, because those were more likely to knock out the opponent. You got way more interesting fights out of that. And that's why the rule set, when they changed, has had so many different iterations and changes since the introduction of the electronic Hogu. The Hogu is the name of the armor. And because, you know, people were just kind of playing tag for so long. And so they changed the rules. They kept changing the rules to try and discourage the tag game that ended up happening. Like, you're not allowed, for a while they banned leg fencing because there was a whole strategy of, like, picking your leg up and using that to block, and then, like, just kind of sniping with it and landing these quick little jabs to the body with your leg to just maximize points. And you ended up leg fighting, or leg fencing is what they ended up calling it, because that was the most effective way to attack and defend for points. So they got rid of that, and it's like, okay, so now there's no more leg fighting. Well, great, there's no more leg fighting. Well, now people aren't leg fighting, but they're still just picking up their leg and just trying to see how many kicks they can land on the body at once without dropping their leg. And it's just like, well, that's not really fighting. You're still playing tag. They're trying to reduce it, but it's still happening because the rule set allows for it and the point system allows for it. And the point system encourages it. So it's just like, oh, huh. And the thing is, I have looked at more traditional Taekwondo kicks, and a lot of people talk about how similar Taekwondo is to karate. And yes, there are, because a lot of the like grappling from Taekwondo and a lot of the what's it called? Well, a lot of the grappling and a lot of the like striking, all of the punches come from karate, because Taekwondo is a combination of Tang Soo Do, which is the Korean word for karate, and you know, Korean martial arts, which were like wrestling and a bunch of kicking martial arts. And so a lot of people will compare Taekwondo to karate because there's a lot of the forms and a lot of the punching and grappling looks like karate. But when you look at traditional Taekwondo kicks, they are much closer mechanically to Muay Thai than they are to karate kicks. Which is weird to a lot of people when you say that, because, you know, if they're a nerd about martial arts, but not like an absolute fucking turbo nerd like I am, their entire time they have been taught and have been shown that Taekwondo and karate's kicks are pretty much the same, but they're really not. In traditional Taekwondo, kicks are much closer to Muay Thai, mechanically speaking. Fuck! Got the... Oh wait, I have thigh cut. I can just use thigh cut. Okay. Where's my thigh cut? Thigh cut! I have 3 thigh cuts. And another thigh cut. And what I mean by that is karate emphasizes pulling the knee across and snapping a lot. And you can still generate power with that, but without making sure your body weight is moving with the kick, you still are not hitting as hard as you can be. And that's the main difference between Muay Thai kicks and karate kicks. Traditional Taekwondo kicks have that emphasis on the body weight moving with the kick. They still have the snappy thing that karate has, but that's because that comes from the influence of Chinese martial arts on everything. But they still have that emphasis on making sure you're moving your body weight into the direction of the kick, which karate doesn't typically emphasize. And that's just because of the history of karate, where it comes from, and what it was used for. So, yeah. And I keep seeing videos where it's like, this is the difference between a karate kick and a Muay Thai kick, or this is the difference between a Taekwondo kick and a karate kick. And it's like, have you ever done these martial arts that you're talking about? Now, I can understand where the confusion comes from with Taekwondo, just because of how much it has changed over the years and how different it has become compared to what it used to be. But like, you know, I'm a gigantic turbo nerd when it comes to martial arts. I have tried just about everything, at least a little bit, in terms of unarmed martial arts. I still haven't done any I still haven't really done a ton of armed martial arts. I have done historical European martial arts. I have done a little bit of Kenjutsu. But I've done karate. I did karate for years. I've done Taekwondo for years. I've done a little bit of Muay Thai. I've done boxing. I've done kickboxing. I have practiced a lot of different martial arts for a decent amount of time, decent enough where I can make statements. And I will see people talk about them with such confidence and just be wrong, which is very annoying. And like what I'm talking about, how karate doesn't emphasize that much in terms, it doesn't emphasize the body weight moving into the strike that much. That's only true for certain styles. Not every style is like that. Don't ask me which style is which, because I don't know all their names, but Kyokushin, for instance, a lot of people will be like, well, in Kyokushin, they're only doing snappy kicks because karate is only snappy kicks. Actually, no. When you look at Kyokushin kicks, they are a lot closer to Muay Thai style kicks than they are to Shotokan style kicks. And so they are doing the whole body weight transfer. They're making sure that they're striking with power. They just don't always do that, and they because, you know, kicks are their most effective weapon in Kyokushin, the Kyokushin rule set, since you're not allowed to punch to the head. So they're throwing kicks lighter so that they can throw kicks more, and they can throw with more they can throw more dynamic kicks and with more flexibility, so that they can be used as the primary weapon. Because if your kicks are your primary weapon, you cannot throw them at full strength for every single one. You'll be too easy to read. Aw, you bastard. There we go. Now I'm fighting the boss. I'm fighting the boss, who I struggle against because of how little I fight her. And I can't hit her from here, so I gotta let her come out into the middle of that arena. Come on! Oh, she's still not here. Okay, I need to like... I still can't hit her. Can I hit her now? Holy crap. I do kind of like this, because this kind of shows like what chain weapons are actually used for, which is less less as an actual weapon and more of area denial. Historically speaking, it's like, because they're not a great option for like for just for fighting, but they're great at just keeping people at bay and keeping them from getting close to you. And they, like, what I'm talking about when it comes to like, oh, the historical uses of particularly Chinese weapons, it's still very much a guess. It's an educated guess, but it's still a guess, because, you know, thanks to Chinese history, they weren't allowed to write down their techniques very much, which is very annoying, because China has a rich history of writing. They were much faster to teach their populace how to read throughout its history compared to a lot of other places. So the fact that they just weren't allowed to write down their techniques into manuals, you know, because they weren't allowed to legally practice their martial arts for so long, they had to practice them in secret. It means that we lose out on a lot of the historical context for these weapons and techniques, and because of that, it leaves a lot of guesswork when it comes to how you're actually supposed to use them. There we go.
What the fuck you doing in here, pal?
That's how you end up with. That's how we ended up with so many fake kung fu practitioners who don't actually know what they're doing. Not even just like don't actually know how to fight. They don't even know about the martial arts that they're claiming to teach. Like, what I mean by that is, they could be teaching a martial art that isn't good at fighting and be teaching it wrong just because of how little actual literature there is when it comes to Chinese martial arts. A lot of the existing literature for these martial arts were written when the like need to be able to practice them didn't exist anymore. So they're written after the fact. Oh yeah, there we go. Fuck. Oh, bastards. I don't know why I did that. That was a waste. There we go. That strong sweep wasn't a waste. And so what I mean by that, and so when I'm talking about the lack of literature in Chinese martial arts, it's in comparison to Western martial arts, sword fighting, dueling, things like that. There's a ton of literature on it, despite the fact that, you know, there were significantly less people who were literate at the time. But they were allowed to practice these things, so they were allowed to write it down, so people did. And they were writing it down at the time where the context of actually using these techniques still existed. Whereas with a lot of Chinese martial arts, they were written after the fact. A lot of the people who were writing it would never actually use, you know, the weapons in actual combat. Whereas in the West, a lot of the people writing the weapons manuals were actively using it for duels, for self-defense, because they were allowed to write it down at the time that they practice it. Whereas in China, they weren't allowed to write it down when they could, and the stuff that was written down, a lot of it ended up getting destroyed by the government, which is very fucking annoying. That's why I'm always weary of a government that actively wants to prevent its populace from being able to practice martial arts and defend themselves. It's always been a major sign of authoritarian governments, which I'm just not a big fan of. Alright, I'm gonna fucking lose at this point. This is gonna be so. I still can't use my focus attack on him, I bet. Oh my god. Parry Lord. Parry Lord. Oh. Can I? Nope. Okay, cool. It was worth a shot. So sweeps still do a ton of structure damage. So I'm gonna do them when I can. Ah, fuck. Oh. That's something I should be doing more. That's a set that I should be doing more. Yeah. Ah. Ah. Ah, fuck. Fuck! Fuck! Oh my god. I was doing so well! There we go! What was the final age I was allowed to be? 70! I got 1 star, everybody! Hi! Alright. And, yeah, with that, my friends, that's, all I had time for today. So, with that, Make Flipper Pants is over, and out of this Izzy. Bye, everybody.